Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Hema, and if you're new to my channel, I make videos on motherhood, arts and crafts and photography. So if these are topics of interest to you, please do subscribe to my channel. And today's topic is on how to choose a daycare for your child. Before we dive into this topic, let me explain you our personal experience. So we started sending our daughter to daycare when she was 6 months old, around 5.5, 6 months old, and it indeed was a challenge to find the right daycare. We did talk to our neighbors and friends to get tips and pointers on how to find a good daycare for your child. And the way I started looking for daycare was I made a whole list of all the places around my area, and usually it's a good idea to either find a daycare close to your house or close to your work. We personally preferred it to be close to house. So I started first preparing a big list of all the daycares around my home. Then I called them up and tried to find more details, and then we narrowed down the list, and finally we went to visit 3 places, one corporate daycare and 2 family based daycares, and finally we ended up choosing one of the family daycares. So that was our experience and our journey. If you are going through the same kind of struggle where you are like, how to find the daycare, what is the right daycare, how do I choose, and how do I narrow down to what I really like and what works with your lifestyle, then you're in the right place, and this video is all about that. So first, let me start explaining the different types of daycare systems. There are 2 daycare systems. One is the corporate daycare and the other one is the family based daycare. Now the corporate daycare pretty much works like a school, and usually they're licensed, whereas home based daycares, they need not be licensed, and again this varies based on the state regulation. But when it comes to California specifically, even home based daycares have to be licensed, and usually this is run by the family members in the house. And also another struggle which most parents go through is daycare good or not, or is it better to keep the child in the home itself and have a nanny instead of a daycare, right? Coming to the question if the daycare is good or not, there are few advantages as well as of course a few limitations of putting a child in daycare. So the first advantage is babies do get that social interaction, because kids tend to learn things quickly from their peer or from other children. And also in cases where you have to return to work early, or if your maternity leave is very short, in those cases you want to leave your baby at a safe and secure place, you can get that with a nanny. But of course there are other advantages and disadvantages of having nanny, but in those cases daycare is a safe and secure option, especially in cases where they're licensed, and kids will start developing a sense of structure, and kids generally like structure. So in daycare setting they do have a good schedule. They have time to nap, time for diaper change, and their food time, so it's all very scheduled. Coming to my personal experience, the way my daycare lady operates is, as soon as we leave her in the morning at daycare, she feeds them first and then gives them a diaper change, and then she puts them to sleep, and then the cycle repeats in the afternoon until we pick her up in the evening. And when it comes to the question if corporate daycare is better or the family based daycare is better, again there are pros and cons to both. But in a family based daycare, usually the number of children are a little less, so each child does get a little bit more attention. However, corporate daycares are also good. They also have substitutes if one teacher is not able to make for that day, and daycares are definitely slightly more cheaper compared to nanny. Another advantage of putting babies in daycare is that they get exposed to germs. I know it is really hard for parents to go through, because they bring all those germs to home, and then you get sick, and you have to go through this whole cycle of getting sick and then recovering. But again, this is good in the sense that they're building their immunity. And one of the limitations of putting them in a daycare is a holiday schedule. Your holiday schedule may not match with theirs, so you have to adjust your schedule a little bit so that your PTO or sick leaves match with the daycare schedules, so that it's easy to manage. Also, you have to juggle this between you and your spouse and the holidays, so all of this does need a little bit of planning. And also you have to remember that you cannot send kids to daycare when they're sick. So how long does it take to find a daycare? So it depends on the city you live. If you live in a small city, then you may be able to find a daycare in just 2 months. But if you live in a big city, like say in Bay Area especially, people start looking for daycares even when they're pregnant because of the long wait list. So when it comes to finding the right daycare, you do have to do quite a bit of research. You have to talk to your pediatrician or any nurses you know, and then your neighbors, your colleagues, your friends, any resources that you have access to before you choose your daycare. It's always good to have that personal reference for your peace of mind. And also another thing that you can do is you can put the baby in the daycare, and you can stop by for unannounced visits and see how they really operate on day-to-day basis. until you develop the trust. And also one thing to remember is before you put the baby in daycare, you have to look at the list of vaccinations that are required. Especially in the state of California, most of the daycares do require all the vaccinations to be given to the child before they're put in the daycare. And also before you finalize the daycare, do check 3 or 4 places for you to get an idea about how the system works. As I mentioned, we checked both corporate daycare system as well as family-based daycare system, and finally we chose a family-based daycare system because we really liked that lady and we had that trust because she genuinely loved the kids. So that's also something that you have to make sure when you visit. You have to see how they are interacting with your child, and you have to be comfortable with, because you really have to be comfortable with the people whom you're leaving your child with. So what are the list of questions that you need to ask when you visit the daycare? I know for me this was the most tricky one because I was like, oh my god, I need really like a checklist, because then I have these extra questions later and then I'm calling up and asking these questions. So I would like to give you this checklist ahead of time, and I'll put it on the screen, and I'll also make a Word document of this and leave it on my blog post for you to reference in future. So the questions you can ask them are: what is the age range that they admit, and what are the timings on weekends as well as Fridays, and what is the holiday schedule, and what is the fees, and do they prefer it to be paid by cash or check and bi-weekly, or do they want it to be paid per month? All of these are something that you can ask. Also, when it comes to corporate daycare systems, you have to remember that they have some non-refundable fees, such as application fee and the initial tryout fee, or those are the things you really have to ask, especially when it is in a corporate system. Then there are more things that you have to really be aware of. And do they provide food for the children or not, because some daycares do provide and others don't. What are the visiting hours and when, and if they provide any activities for the children. And especially if you're admitting an infant, and you want to ask them if you can provide the breast milk in a frozen pouch and they would feed it, or you can ask them if they prefer bottles instead of pouches. So, and also you can check if they're licensed and if they're trained to do an infant CPR. And remember, infant CPR is different from adult CPR. And also in daycares, they do take kids for a walk. So you want to make sure that they are in a good neighborhood. And also you can be creative and ask them, well, how do they handle when kids fight? What do you do if they don't eat? And also you can ask them if they have any food options for kids that are not eating yet. And also when you're visiting, you have to look how clean they're keeping their place, and you can also see if they're patient with the kids. And also remember, toddlers and infants should not be together, especially in a corporate daycare system. And also you can ask them information on who can pick and drop, and if they have any security system for the home. Also you can ask if they have a camera system and if you can log in and watch the baby when you want to. Also do share this information with the baby's pediatrician so that they are aware that she goes to a daycare. Also in family-based daycares, you need to ask if they have pets or not. So guys, that's it for this video. I'm hoping this video is helpful, and if you do like this video, please do give a thumbs up, and do check my other videos on motherhood playlist. I post videos every week, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.